I'll now move to the Champions League final, which everyone is most interested in. This is on Saturday, a week after Manchester City took care of Manchester United in the FA Cup at Wembley Stadium in London. In terms of the lineup they played, Man City had played their cup goalkeeper, Stefan Ortega, formerly of Arminia Bielefeld in the German Bundesliga. They got relegated. He was looking for another place anyway. They did start him in the FA Cup final. It should return to Ederson for the Champions League final. And his creativity out of the back, I mean, hasn't really had an awesome year in the Premier League. They seem to not keep as many clean sheets as you would expect. For such a dominant title-winning Manchester City, the odds are back. Welcome to BTP number 203, because that's the only how it goes. Shout out to all the Connecticut area codes if you're listening. Anyway, you probably got a little more money to throw at these lines. You probably don't even need that bonus from Bet Online. Anyway, so in terms of the Man City lineup from this FA Cup final against Manchester United, Kyle Walker started, as did Ruben Dias. Manuel Kanji in the back, John Stones in his weird hybrid center defensive midfielder type of role. Rodri also had played center back for the Spanish national team. So there's a bunch of defense in that midfield, to say the least. Bernardo Silva, who's been awesome and been so incredible, scoring a ton of goals, gets away with every foul, tackle, tactical foul, everything, avoids yellow cards, red cards, everything. Kevin De Bruyne, one of the most creative players. Ilkay Gundogan, who's one of the best creators, who doesn't get talked about enough, captain of City. And then Jack Grealish, who I feel like has taken this job from Phil Foden. I'm not sure that there's a huge difference in those two, but being able to put one fresh on at 60 minutes might be a big deal in this matchup. And then, of course, up top, Erling Haaland, who scored more goals than some teams or leagues did, it feel like. So I don't expect a ton of changes in that matchup, barring some sort of late fitness injury in training, fever, or something like that, mono, COVID, who knows. As for Inter, their last match, they played a pretty rotated side on the road at Torino, but ultimately were initially an underdog and then ended up winning the match. So both come in off of victories. Both were away from home. One, Man City on a neutral, Inter Milan were on the road at Torino. And that's a tough matchup. Torino are a mid-table side in Serie A, but going on the road for a team that possesses the ball a lot, I felt like Inter played pretty well. They started Lautaro Martinez next to Romelu Lukaku, which I'm hoping is going to be their starting lineup, because Lukaku's in a great run of form right now. We know how good he can be. And he's one of the best players in the world when he's got his motivation, when he's got the momentum, and he seems to have that. I think Chelsea are going to want to take him back for next season, considering they own his rights, but we'll see if that ends up happening. As for the rest of the lineup, I mean, Handanovic started at goalkeeper. That's definitely going to change to Onana. Bastoni, De Vrij, and Darmian started in the back. And then I know that they made sure to rest DeMarco, who's suddenly become a very, very important player for them, which is surprising a little bit. Nicola Barella started on the bench. I expect him to start in midfield. Definitely over Gagliardini, but maybe Brozovic is in there next to Çalhanoğlu, but I also feel like that might be a Mkhitaryan type of situation if he's healthy enough to play. Dumfries on the right wing back position. Gosens started on the left against Torino, but I don't think it'll be that. It'll be more DeMarco's position, because why would you take him out after all the goals he's been scoring, and after how well Inter has played, really controlling their city rivals Milan in the semifinal, and really, I think, impressing significantly throughout the season, despite Napoli's runaway Scudetto title or trophy win in the Italian Serie A. So that, I guess, is a little bit of a run through of where everyone was playing or who started in their last matchup. We did see Dzeko come off the bench. I guess Bellanova, who's probably not going to play a huge role. Cherby, who had been starting a lot and might make the starting lineup in that back line in the middle and potentially fill in for De Vrij. I would expect Inter to play as defensively as possible in this matchup. Now I'll get to the line here. Manchester City currently a 1.25 goal favorite. Bet Online, all the juice on Inter right now. Over under is 2 3/4. Juiced almost all of the juices on the under. It started initially, I was expecting Inter to be a 1-goal underdog with an over-under of 3. Opened 1.25 at -110 both ways. It's since then, there's been a bunch of Inter money coming on. And I tend to agree with that. I feel like this is going to be a really tight matchup. We've seen how Man City have not been able to secure a Champions League trophy. It's been the one that's gotten away from them multiple years in a row. Got lost in the final to Chelsea a couple of years ago. Somehow collapsed against Real Madrid, who ended up winning last season. I don't know necessarily that they're not going to win this competition, and especially I'd favor them as the longer this match goes. But Inter Milan are a great side, and I feel like have been playing so well that seeing them getting more than a goal seems gigantic to me, and it honestly feels like a number I don't want to let get away from me. As for the total, I would love to see a 3. I feel like that push on 3 goals in the first 90 minutes plus stoppage time would be incredibly essential for me to play an under. I am leery of playing unders with Manchester City, but that's probably the number I'm holding out for. The juice is going the other way, though. It looks like it's going to hit 2.5 before it hits 3. So it might not be a lot for me to play there. As for how this matchup will go, I expect Inter Milan to play on the counterattack. That's how they want to play. That's how they've set up for years. Ever since they won the Scudetto under Antonio Conte, Simone Inzaghi, who's honestly looked like he was on the hot seat and going to be relieved of his duties or sacked as manager. He's delivered everything you could ask for besides Scudetto this season and getting the Champions League final, especially coming out of the group of death all the way back in the group stage in Champions League with Barcelona and Bayern Munich. It's been an awesome run for them, and I would expect him to be very confident that he will maintain his job, and that sets Inter Milan up for good, I think, success next season as well. Manchester City are going to possess the ball. They're going to run up the pitch, and they're going to take a lot of chances, I think, because they're used to teams trying to play defensively against them. I think Inter are a little bit different than what Man City have basically destroyed for months and months and months now in the Premier League, where everyone sits behind the ball and just tries to do as much as they can to stay in a match with Manchester City. I think Inter Milan have a lot more threats in their lineup, especially with the way Lukaku's playing. And honestly, Lautaro Martinez should be talked about more because he's been so good and probably the best player on the Inter side for a long time this season. I don't know necessarily that he's the paciest to potentially run by Manchester City on that counterattack, but Man City, honestly, they haven't dominated possession as much against the best teams in the world, nor in the English Premier League, excuse me. They're great at taking tactical fouls that should be yellow cards. A lot of times they don't get yellow carded like they should. But I would expect that it will be a pretty even refereeing type of situation. No English or Italian refs. Hopefully no Spanish refs. I swear to God, that's probably what's going to get drawn here. And that will be really bad and probably offer more penalties than are deserved and a lot of ridiculous shenanigans that goes on with La Liga. I'm really hoping it would be a German or a French, but I feel like the way everyone talks down about French leagues is probably not going to be. I'm hoping maybe Daniel Siebert or potentially Dr. Felix Brich from Germany, but we'll see. I haven't seen that announced just yet. It doesn't really matter too much, but certainly something to think about. And if you're playing card props or all those sort of things, that might be what I do for the Champions League episode, is come on, do another betting the pitch that gets a lot more in depth with props and things of that nature, because you might not want to bet the side or total here. You might want to find something else. As for the to advance number, we have Manchester City minus 450, which has actually been falling a little bit. So that's where it initially opened, but then climbed up to minus 500. So 1 to 5, 500 wins $100. We saw Inter start at 325, climb to 375, back down to 355. So it's nice to see a little bit of respect coming in on the Italian team that really, I think, has deserved it for the way they played this year. And ultimately, I feel like I think it's going to be a much closer match than this line suggests. Currently the 1.25 with all the juice right now, I don't want to lose that, because if Inter lose by a single goal, I'd rather win some money than push for the last bet of the season, or one of the last, depending on the Serie A match and what ends up coming on Sunday, the day after this Champions League final on Saturday. But that's the way I'm most interested in right now. Like I said, I'm interested in under 3 as well. But I don't necessarily think it's going to get there. I do think Inter have a good shot to win this championship, this trophy. And I've had pretty good success fading Manchester City. It's not always a fun thing to do, and the losses feel terrible, but ultimately I could see Manchester City celebrating it at the final whistle, a 1-goal victory, and you still win half a bet on Inter Milan getting 1.25 goals.